So we are going to continue with Matthew Arnold's Culture and Anarchy, and I wish to complete Matthew Arnold's Culture and Anarchy today. This will be the third part of the lecture and the final part. So we had discussed about Matthew Arnold and how Matthew Arnold's work was a reaction against the Victorian mentality that that did not want to believe religion anymore, that turned to science for all the answers, that believe in the pleasure principle of art for art's sake. So Matthew Arnold's works were all a reaction against this. And culture and anarchy is of the same vein, where Matthew Arnold describes democracy, or the desire for every individual to get their rights get individual rights, as a form of anarchy. This is very interesting because we have always considered democracy to be something very positive, but Matthew Arnold here is describing democracy to be in a very negative way. He describes democracy as anarchy. Now, we all in the 21st century say that the opposite of democracy is anarchy, but Matthew Arnold is saying that democracy itself is anarchy. Why does he say that? He says so because he believes that individual can never be more than the society, that the society is the greatest, and whatever should be done in the best interest of the society as a whole. And the answer to this question as to how to do something for society as a whole, the answer that Arnold comes up with is by the creation of culture. And what is culture? According to Matthew Arnold, culture is a certain rules, regulations, dictums that bind society together, and by which all rungs and all classes of society uh, live together. So it is a common set of rules. So if we are to move from anarchy to real freedom and progress, he feels that we need a culture, and this culture is going to bind everyone. There would be nothing called individual desires. It has to be a collective desire. So yeah, again, you may be forgiven if you are of the opinion that it has a very slight Marxist leaning to all this, but then I am not going into that politics now. So as I had told you in the previous class, the major idea, the majorest idea of all is Matthew Arnold's division of the British society into three classes: barbarians, Philistines, and the populace, where he says that the barbarian are the aristocracy, and they are so snobbish and self-involved, so in love with their power in society, that they have nothing to offer society, nothing to offer in the creation of society's culture. Then we come to populace, who Matthew Arnold says that is the working class, who are mostly illiterate, and because of their lack of education, they also have nothing to offer to society as a whole. They are raw and blind. He says that the most important rung of the society is the Philistines, or the newly created middle class, who, because of the industrial revolution, now have the power of capital, now have the power of money, they are becoming eventually powerful. Some of them are even more powerful than the lords. They have education, but he says that the only negative that they have is that they are driven more by individual desires than a collective desire. They are only interested in their betterment and upliftment, not the betterment of society as a whole. So they have plenty of energy and morality. But insufficient sweetness and light. Well, these are the as I was explaining in the previous classes. The first chapter is sweetness and light, where he gives up his foundation of the culture. That is where he propagates his idea that what culture is. Culture is a set of rules. Culture is a set of regulations that bind the society all together. But then it is again self-contradictory, because how can culture be constant? Can culture be constant? Culture is always in a flux. So if culture is in a flux, so if society is in a flux, then how can there be one singular culture binding society? And then in Doing as One Likes, he describes how he thinks of democracy to be anarchy, where the middle class with the Chartism movement and the first reform bill and the second reform bill are given voting rights, and they are becoming more powerful with the increase in capital due to the industrial revolution, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so on and so forth. And how, because of the power that is coming to their hand, they are becoming more individualized and care about their own desires and their own upliftment. And this is resulting in anarchy. They are not using their newfound power, capital, and education for the betterment of society. They're doing it for their own betterment. Then we come to the most popular chapter in the essay, Barbarian Philistines Populace, where the same thing that I was telling you. The barbarians are too snobbish to get involved. The populace are too raw and blind to get involved. The Philistines must get involved. They must use their newfound power, their capital, their education for the creation of this culture. But Matthew Arnold says that these Philistines must be humanized. They are humanized because they have education, but they have no morality. They have energy, but it is all individual energy. So they need to be humanized. Uh, the Philistines need to be humanized when they are shown society. They are taught to assess society and made to realize how this they should help in the upliftment and the betterment of society as a whole, not just themselves. Then we come to Hebraism and Hellenism, where he compares the Hebrew and the Greek tradition. Hebraism comes from Hebrew, that is Jewish. Hellenism comes from Hellas, that is Hellas or Hellenic, which is Greek. So what is the Hebrewic tradition? The Hebraic tradition or the Hebraism is when everything in society is a cause effect. You do this, and if the effect is this, then it is because you have done this. So if it is a negative effect, it is because of your sins. It is a positive effect, then it is because of your blessings. This is Hebraism. Hebraism is a cause effect. But Arnold says that Hebraism is too simplistic to apply if we are to create a culture. We just can't say that if you do this, this will happen, and hence you need to do this. Means if you do this, something bad is going to happen. If you do this, something good is going to happen. So you only need to do the good, not the bad. So he says that the Hebraic notion is too simplistic. Society is much more complex, and so the creation of culture is also much more complex. And it comes to a synthesis of the Hebraic and the Hellenic point of views. He comes to a synthesis of the Hebraic and the Hellenic point of views, where he says that we start with what is the Hellenic point of view? The Hellenic point of view is seeking knowledge and then applying and then seeing what result that the application of that knowledge is going to give. So what is the Hellenic system? The Hellenic system is when the Philistines would be given knowledge about society and will be shown how the application of the society is going to affect society, and in turn be taught how to affect society altogether. And he mixes Hellenism and Hebraism together, and he tries to find a new way of creating culture, where he says that we start with Hellenism, where the Philistines are educated, humanized, and we change the way that they are seeing the world. We give them the knowledge to understand what happens if we do this and that to the world, how it is affecting the world. And then it is because of their education and their knowledge, they themselves come to realize the fact that if they do apply this knowledge, it is going to be for the good of the society. If they do not apply this knowledge, it is going to be for the worse of the society. And so they are going to take the decision by themselves. This decision will not be thrown upon their heads. they are going to take this decision by themselves because they have studied society, they have been given society, and they have been, as Matthew Arnold says, quote unquote, humanized. So this is the Hebraic and the Hellenic pattern. The ideal, however, is very much a synthesis of the two, with the Hebraic system highly constructed and codified system of conduct and obedience having its dark side, but also manifesting a clear, dogged tenacity in surviving long after Hellenist society has collapsed. So what Matthew Arnold says is that we can't just keep on learning without putting it into use. The point of all our learning and our knowledge that we are going to we are going to we are going to apply knowledge. We are going to only learn. Now there has to be a result. We're going to only learn. We are only going to understand the view of society, and then we are going to do nothing. This is not going to help. So Hellenism should be complemented by Hebraism, where by the understanding of the knowledge, the Philistines would realize that if that knowledge is not dispersed in society, what the effect is going to be, or if that knowledge is dispersed in the society, what again effect it is going to be. So it is a cause and effect. So what the middle path that Matthew Arnold is trying to ascertain is a middle path. It is almost like a middle path. Yes, it is like a middle path, but it is a mixture of both. So first you are learning, so it is not a blind cause and effect system. So he's trying to justify the Hebraic cause and effect system by Hellenic knowledge, by the Hellenic assessment or analysis of knowledge altogether. Then the next chapter, Porro unum est necessarium, with Latin translating to what one thing is needful. Well, here first we need to understand the word Puritan. What does the word Puritan mean? See, there were two types of priests in the church. There were Puritan priests and there were liberal priests. Who were Puritan priests? The Puritan priests were those priests who absolutely followed the Bible to the letter. Who absolutely followed the Bible to the letter and lived their life according to the teachings of the Bible. They did not deviate from the Bible, absolutely not 1 inch. For example, let's say, let us say the Puritans would not be a very huge fan of literature, because they would not because they are of the opinion that literature is something base, literature is something that is real, and by doing something that is false, we are desecrating the name of God. The Puritans would not like music, because again that is desecration in the name of God. We should only sing hymns to the Lord. So any kind of literature you make regarding God is okay. Any kind of literature that you, any kind of music that you make regarding any kind of literature that you make regarding, any kind of music that you make regarding, church things and God is okay. The Puritans were very strict in their adherence to the biblical norms, very strict in adherence to the biblical norms. The essays were written at a time when Puritans dominated the discourse of British theology. Theology means religious studies. And for them, the one needful thing, most virtuous above all else, was the vaunted Puritan work ethic. Now, the point is, Matthew Arnold was a Puritan. Matthew Arnold was against the Victorian notion that religion was absolutely faithless and science had all the answers. And what he wanted to express in this essay by Porro unum est necessarium is the fact that the one most needful thing that we need for this creation of a culture, and really the application of this culture, is discipline, is the virtuous discipline, is work ethics, where people would be true to society, where the Philistines will be true to the knowledge that they have learned and would be true to the creation of the culture. That the disciplined work ethic The entire ideological framework of the text is the ideal balance of the state in moderation. Now, what does this mean? Now, why is Matthew Arnold looking to create this culture so that he could bring the state in a level of moderation? Now, the state erstwhile was never in a state of moderation. No state is ever in a state of moderation. So it is almost like on a balance, and it is tilting sometimes towards this, sometimes to the other side. Matthew Arnold wants to bring the state and all the institutions of the state, politics, economy, society. He tries to balance all these qualities out, and he tries to do it by using culture, where everything that is happening in the state, in the society, by the economy, according to the politics, by the legal system, will be done for the betterment of society as a whole, the state as a whole, not for individual parties or individual classes or personal gains. So this is what poro unum est necessarium means, is that the one needful thing which is required for the application of this application of the knowledge and creation of a culture is work ethics, discipline, and only then can a state of moderation be reached when everything, where the outcome of every institution of the state shall be for the betterment of the state as a whole. Then we come to the last chapter, our liberal practitioners. It is an attempt to apply the theoretic constructs applied previously to concrete political, religious events occurring at the time. References to the real estate intestacy bill, the Liberation Society. There are a lot of things. This is perhaps the most uninteresting and unimportant part of the entire essay. What Matthew Arnold is doing here is that Matthew Arnold is trying to show all the legal, political, institutional, economic reforms that has happened in the country, and all these reforms were termed as liberal reforms for mass. These were all considered to be mass movement, giving rights to mass of people. But he shows how these liberal, quote unquote, liberal reforms have only given rise to anarchy, and how even after these liberal reforms, society is not still in a unified nature. Society is still not developing or advancing on its own virtue. Society is still bogged down. There is division between the class structures. Some people are only thinking about their individual power and consciousness. So this last chapter is kind of is, because he is telling us that democracy is anarchy, so he kind of tries to prove why he is saying so. And this is what the last chapter is, where he points this out to society as a whole and tells them, you see, I am saying all these things just not I wish to say all these things, but he takes up every bill, every reform, every movement, and shows how it has led to the creation of even more anarchy and not to the unified development of society or a state. Yeah, this is, as I told you, this is the last chapter. I'm going to then stop my class here. I hope you have understood. And if you have again any problems, feel free to contact me.